Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost. So that means this is Friday and it's September 13th. Friday the 13th doesn't scare me at all. So we're here and we've been doing this now for 228 consecutive Fridays. This is our TRU Community Gathering that we started as a community service, really, in the year when COVID found us, 2020. April 17th, 2020 is the first one that we did, and here we are how many years later? Like 4 years later. So we're still up to doing this and interested in keeping a community together and thriving and in conversation. And we uh, we used to talk about stuff that had to do with the C word, COVID, that is. And we don't do that much anymore, even though we all know that we all have friends right now who has COVID. We have as many people, we know as many people who have COVID now as we ever did. So it's not going away. However, we've all grown a little cocky and brave, and we don't wear our masks anymore, although I still carry mine with me. Um, but the conversations are really more general right now. We're the general conversations about all aspects of theater. The thing that was the gift of COVID, believe it or not, was that it forced me to think in virtual terms and make my programs go virtual like this. And never wanted to know what Zoom was, never wanted to know a thing about tech or virtual, never wanted it at all. And then within like a couple weeks of maybe a month or two, when we started this community gathering, suddenly we had people here from all over the world. I mean, we had people, of course, from the East Coast and the West Coast and Canada. But we also have Germany, we have
Mm.
Singapore, we've had Malaysia, we've had Australia, UK, of course. So it's a gift. I mean, it's a gift and I embrace it and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that I was pushed to do what we're doing now. So the conversations are, well, let's put it this way, because I'm in Manhattan. Those of you out there, you probably know that we're New York based. You may not know. Now you know. So we're New York based, and so we've gotten very New York centric in our thinking. And the other thing that's very much dominates New York is commercial theater and traditional theater. So every now and then, more than every now and then, as often as possible, I like to remind myself and I like to remind the community that there are other ways of creating theater. Theater doesn't always happen at the Schubert. Theater happens in many ways, in many different forms, and we've explored dozens of them over the past th 3.5, 4 years. And today we're going to take a look at pop-up theater. Actually, it's more than pop-up theater. You're going to meet um, the my friends Leese and Amanda. I'm going to bring them in right now. Again, the button where I used to go to open up gallery view is suddenly in a different place. But this is Strike Anywhere Performance Ensemble. Actually, you guys really call yourself Strike Anywhere, but you
Yeah.
just describe it as being a performance ensemble, probably because it's a performance ensemble. It's
Yeah.
it's part of the model, right?
Yeah, the official name is Strike Anywhere Performance Ensemble. We go by Strike Anywhere.
Yeah. And as the name suggests, they bring theater to, well, not necessarily everybody does this, but I know you bring theater to unexpected places. And I think that a lot of your work would be considered site specific, right?
Yep.
It's like a
Yep.
destination wedding. You bring you bring
Yeah.
everything to
Something really exciting in an unexpected place.
yeah. So
Yeah,
tell us a
absolutely.
little bit that. Actually, let's meet Amanda and as well. Amanda, say hello to everyone. You're the director of education, so that suggests to me that Strike Anywhere probably has an educational component, which we might talk about as well.
Yes, I
See?
love Strike
The
Anywhere.
brain works.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Hinkle Wallace. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And yeah, I'm the Director of Education and Partnerships, and I oversee all of our community projects, partnerships, some fundraising, some marketing, a little bit of all the things, but mostly learning experiences for students, sometimes in public schools, sometimes in colleges, in community. We are everywhere. So
Literally, literally. So Lise, tell us a little bit about this. You've been doing this since, I want to say 1997. Am I wrong? I mean,
That's correct. Yep.
it's, oh, it just, yeah.
1997. Yep. Yeah, and it's funny because the work, now we've very much grown into our name. We do Strike Anywhere. We might be in a laundromat or a terrace or Lord knows, it could be a porch, a plaza. But in the early years, it's funny, we were, very much in theaters. We were doing indoor theater, and we were focused on topical issues, the importance of solidarity, the corporate control of the media. We would make shows that had to do with important community issues, but we weren't in communities, working with communities, creating reflective shows in different places. And all of that really started to change, I would say, around 2010, when we were commissioned to create a new show for a festival up at NACL Theater in Sullivan County in the Catskills. And I said, okay, oh yeah, great. We'd love to do that. What's the theme of this year's festival? And she said, water. I said, oh, okay, well, water. All right, well, we can make a show about water. What are some of the water issues in your area? And she said, oh, fracking. Now, this was at a time when people didn't know quite yet much about fracking, and we certainly didn't. So we dove headlong into research about fracking and found that, Pennsylvania, a lot of people right across the border, they were being approached by gas companies to lease their lands, and we ended up doing an interview-based show. So we interviewed people in New York and Pennsylvania about their experience and how fracking had impacted their lives and the community in terms of communication across, like, what's happened between neighbors, and how much the industry had really fractured relationships in communities. And we became very, I would say, impassioned to continue the project. It ended up becoming a 5-year project for us. We toured to places where they were fracking. We brought a lot of information back to New York City because at the time they were looking to lease land in the watershed that fed New York City's water. So I was quite perturbed about that. And so at that point, I would say the work of the company really shifted gears to going to places, meeting the community, performing interviews, and involving the community in the show itself.
Well, let's take a step back for a second. What did you do before this? And why did you decide why in heaven's name did you want to start a theater company?
Well, you know what? I had a very traditional theater background. I grew up doing musical theater. I went to school and studied, Stanislavski method. I had no real training in more experimental or interview-based theater or anything like that, or even improvisation. It wasn't until I came to New York City that I started to become exposed to that kind of work. And I luckily landed my first job and internship was with the Irondale Ensemble. And that's where I came into contact with theater games, improvisation, using improvisation to devise new material, political theater, and theater, using theater in classrooms. And I loved the work. I loved going into classrooms and really thinking about how to achieve a teacher's goals and meet student needs, but taking theater games, improvisation games, playwriting, and then figuring out how I could adapt that to the very specific needs of that particular classroom. That kind of got me off on the, and then after Irondale, I realized, hey, most of the theaters in New York have education programs. And then I started working for, I made a list. I wanted to work for all the top theaters. And I went about, I worked for probably a dozen different major cultural institutions, BAM, Roundabout, who I still work for, MCC Theater, Theater for a New Audience, TDF. And with each program, they all had a different focus, but it really, I was studying improvisation. I was getting very deep into improvisation. And I guess that combination of being able to improvise in a classroom, read the room, understand the goals of the teacher, the needs of the particular students in that room, and that's very, the challenge that each group is very different, has different needs, and you really have to improvise in the moment to keep the class lively and moving and stuff. All of that.
I want you to give yourself credit for that, because not everybody goes into the situation and realizes that the needs change from place to place. It's that's part of your perceptiveness. So pat yourself on the back for that. There you go. Well done. Well done. That was a great pat.
Thanks.
So I can't believe that I hadn't put it together that you worked with Irondale. I kept thinking, where did the partnership? Because I know you have a partnership with Irondale, and I thought, where did that come from? So now I know where it came from. Of course, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Terry's a real mentor for me. And Amanda worked for Irondale for many years as well. She was director of education there for many years. But we actually met. Amanda and I met at Roundabout. She was working in the education department there. And then I whisked her away.
Did you ever make it to Manhattan Theater Club? Because
no, I never worked for MTC.
Do you know David Shukoff?
Yeah.
David was my teacher in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was one of my teachers.
Yeah, he's got a great program.
So let's see, where should we start? I know at one point you're going to show us a screen share of some of the site-specific work that you've done. But let's talk about, you didn't expect to be doing what you're doing now when you first started this. So this was an evolution. So how was this an evolution based on need, or was it based on your interests? You started finding things that were more interesting to you, and did you build your company based on what you thought was interesting and engaging and important work, or was it just obvious to you? Oh, got to do this. I've got to do that. How is it shaped?
I would say there were several.
Strike,
oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, how has Strike Anywhere shapeshifted over the years?
I knew coming out of school that I eventually wanted to have my own company. But I never imagined it as an improv-based company. At the time, I didn't know anything about really experiential learning or ensemble-based theater. But the time at Irondale really influenced, I'd say, the process that I use. I also have a very Spolin-based theater game, improv-based approach. It's always about building an ensemble and then empowering the group to find the solutions themselves. So I'm essentially setting up a lab and the group is finding the way forward. whether that's the classroom or the rehearsal room. But I there were a couple of people that I met along the way that I'd say that I ended up taking a strong left turn at those times. Once was when I was in college, I went to Dartmouth. We had a guest who came only for 3 days, but he had a major impact on my direction. And his name was Alan Bolt, and he was doing work in Nicaragua with peasants, organizing peasants through theater. And that, like a light bulb went off for me when I met him. And I hadn't ever been exposed to theater that had a real social purpose, that was aiming to do something and have a very tangible effect. So that was number one. Number two, was at Irondale. Aside from what I shared, the musical director at the time was Walter Thompson. He's the inventor of sound painting. And he and I became very close. We became rock climbing partners. And then later, he wanted to adapt his sound painting sign language for theater. And he invited me and another actor to help him do that. And I was the first actor to be sound painted. What is sound painting?
Yeah, I was going to say it's time. It's time to actually tell everybody what sound painting is.
I think we got there. Yeah. So sound painting is a sign language. It's a universal sign language for live composition with improvisers. So essentially, you'll see somebody signing to the group of performers, and then the performers improvise according to the signs. The signs provide some type of parameter. So for example, I could say, this is brass. So trumpet 1, improvise with swing feel. Watch me, I'm going to give you 4 beats to come in, and then I will assign a tempo. And then boom, that trumpeter is improvising. I haven't given a key. I don't know what notes that they're going to play, but I've given a genre and a tempo. So they have.
So the people that need to learn this are the musicians and also the performers, the actors need to actually learn.
The dancers, whoever you're working with.
How much time does it take to teach them the language?
Well, you can do a workshop with a group, and in 2 hours, a group can learn 25 signs, and we can make something. But to create a very nuanced and, I would say, more subtle, complex, subtle, I don't know, a piece that has more depth and nuance. My group, we've been doing it 27 years. So, and I have members in the company who've only been with us for 4 or 5 years, but that amount of time, you can't really replace that. That's very special. And we can really go much further that way.
This is such a trivial question, but it's on my mind. How has the language evolved? Have you had to create new signs for things, new things that you were doing?
Yeah, it's constantly evolving, and we haven't. I mean, the language has now spread to 33 different countries. It's all over the world, and we come together once a year for what we call the Sound Painting Think Tank, and that's a time where we codify language. So I might come back and say, "Hey, everybody, I came up with a new sign this year because I wanted to accomplish X. I didn't think there was a sign for it. Here's what I did with my ensemble." And then
give us an example, because this fascinates me. What would be something that...
So a sign that I created a long time ago is tactic. So actor changed tactic. So they might be caught in a loop. Let's say they're caught in a loop saying aardvark art, aardvark art. And then I give them change tactic, aardvark art. Aardvark art. So they're changing the tactic behind whatever they're that this is a very basic example, but
Right.
um
But I love
they're
Aardvark art. I'm so surprised that you brought it up because I'm just a big fan.
yeah, so the think tank's a time where we codify new language. You know, Walter, who's the inventor of sound painting, he might say, hey, we already have a sign for that. Here's how you can sign it.
Well,
Or, oh, that's
this
a
was
great
another thing.
idea.
This was another thing that concerned me. If there are 33 different countries and multiple companies using this language, how do you all know whose new sign you should be using? How do you decide that? It's like, do you know what I'm saying? Like you've come up with something, but somebody in Belgium has
Yeah,
also come up with with something that's trying to accomplish something similar.
yeah. Well,
Who
hopefully
wins?
we meet up at the think tank and we can share the new signs. And currently, while Walter is still alive, he's able to say like, "Hey, that's a little too close to such and such sign. What if we were to sign it this way?" And
Yeah.
then we actually will codify the new sign as a community, and that gets set into the language. But there will come a time, I think, when that is no longer possible. I mean, there's already dialects that are starting to form, and it's going to unfortunately at some point get to a point where we can't communicate if dialects get too far out.
Well, no, also because so many different companies are doing this sort of work in so many excuse me, in so many different ways that what might be relevant for one company's technique may not be necessary for your
Sure.
technique.
Sure. And I mean, there's latitude. You can make specific changes for your company, defaults for your company. We all have that. But I think if you're going to teach the language, that's where it's important to know what's kind of standard so that you'll be able to work in multiple groups. If you go to Belgium, you'll understand what the sound painter is signing. You're not going to be so far out because you only know Strike Anywhere's dialect. When I'm teaching, I'm very clear to say in Strike Anywhere we do this, but this is actually the proper way to sign it, so that you'll be able to communicate across.
So I want to bring Amanda into this a little bit because Amanda, you are the director of education. Is this the education we're talking about? Is this the teaching of sound painting, or is there more involved in what you're doing in terms of education?
Yeah, our a lot of our education programs might use sound painting as a technique. But like Leese was saying, a lot of our core company members and performers know sound painting, and not all of a lot of our ensemble members do teach as well, but we also have teaching artists that are really skilled theater makers and may not know as much sound painting. And so it's not in all of our residencies and programs, but certainly available, certainly to our core members to use in the classroom. It's been really amazing because, like Leese was saying, you can go to any country and work with anyone that doesn't necessarily have a shared spoken language and be able to communicate. So something we've seen a lot of theater directors and teachers use it in class in terms of something like volume. You can sign up and down. So instead of, while you're coaching the student, share your voice, please speak up, interrupting them, which is actually not helpful. You can sign to them, which is really nice.
We didn't state something I think we neglected to state something obvious that one of the main reasons this is so useful is because it can be used in any language. So it's a way for you to cross barriers internationally, and hypothetically you could have an ensemble of performers that are from 8 different countries and 8 different languages. You could.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you choose to do that, but with sound painting, it makes a common language for everybody. So, again, I forgive me for I just wanted to get that out there and state it. Um, so uh, you
But I
have
want to just go back to about education programs. We do
okay.
actually have a lot of other education programs that don't involve sound painting. I mean, we work with teachers to do curricular residencies where we're addressing a teacher-specific curriculum and using theater as the mechanism by which students learn. So they might be learning about the rise of fascism in Weimar Germany, or they might be learning about how to conjugate a verb, but the way that they're learning is through theater, and we're adapting theater games, improv, and playwriting exercises to help the students learn a concept or vocabulary or something.
How would that work? How do you do that? I mean, I so it's improv. It's of course it's a tool. I mean, we focused on sound painting because it's your unique. It's one of your unique tools. But how do you use improv for teaching? I'm
You
not
want me
sure.
to take that, or
I
you
mean, I
want to
don't.
take that, Amanda?
Yeah, it's improv is such an amazing tool for students to get comfortable speaking in front of a group, even in front of each other, even in small groups, right? Like when you think about storytelling, telling a story about something fun that happened to you, improvising about like silly things, or like learning to listen or play different characters, just starting to kind of communicate more, make eye contact. A lot of life skills are in theater and that we take for granted as theater makers, that come very natural to us after so many years of practice, but not everyone has um, that kind of foundational connections to be able to communicate more effectively and clearly and share their voice and what they want to say in the world. So we're really inspired to do that with teachers. We co-plan all of our lessons. Our artists and teachers just had a planning meeting yesterday for a new project starting out in Queens. It'll be a storytelling project. We have a signature program that we've done in a couple schools now. It's been really nice to replicate it. It's called Windows and Mirrors. And it's about seeing yourself in someone else's story reflected back to you, and also seeing something new, looking into something, a new perspective you might not have considered. So a lot of schools use it for different reasons. Specifically in Queens, these 12th graders are using it as a launch pad for their college essays.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that because I was going to say that we're focusing on actors a lot, and it's I've got a room full of writers. So where's the place for writers in all in
Well,
everything
in
that you
that
do?
particular program, we pair a playwright in the classroom, a teaching artist who works with the students to craft a story. It's a personal story from their own lives about a pivotal moment in their life. And they work with the students to create a strong hook, an arc, strong ending, and it's going to be a monologue essentially that the student is going to perform. We're going to do a story slam where we have our live musicians accompany the students in the final performance, but they work with the playwright to write the story, and then they work with an actor to work on performance skills to be able to share the story in front of their peers.
So your name says you're a performance ensemble. So obviously you have lots of actors in there. Do you also have writer members?
Yeah, we don't do a
Yeah.
lot of writing though. It's most, I mean, we have we have some playwrights who work as teaching artists, for example, in this program, Windows and Mirrors, but a lot of the work is is devised either through improvisation in the rehearsal room with the performers, and then set, or we develop, I guess, signposts, parameters within which we improvise on stage. So it's not that often that we're writing something that gets set and then repeated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of writers in my room would normally just reach out to you and say, "How can I get involved and what can I do?" And so it's a little bit more of an acting ensemble than it is a writer's
Yeah,
opportunity,
except
but
that
there,
it's comprised of jazz musicians, dancers, and actors.
yeah,
So it's definitely interdisciplinary.
right. So I thought of something else I wanted to ask you. Give me a second. I'll find my thought in a second. Um, I wanted to ask you another question, a broader question about. There's so many different aspects to what you do. There's improv, there's sound painting, there's site specific. So let's go to site specific and pop up for a
Sure,
minute and talk
sure.
about how that sort of took over for you. I mean, I think that wasn't expected. I think it popped up to surprise you as much as everybody else.
Yeah, it did. It did. It came out of a project that we did in 2016, I think, or 15. We were invited by a French sound painting ensemble that is very much like ours, dancers, actors, and musicians, called the Tour Sound Painting Orchestra, to create a piece that took place all on one street in Tours, France. Where they conducted a bunch of interviews with both residents and shopkeepers on the street. And then we created a series of, I forget, about 21 short sound painted performances all along the street at different times. So you might, at 2 o'clock, you might catch 6 of them, and then 5 o'clock, another 5 in different spots along the street. And it was a very fun and very popular project. And so it was supposed to be just a one-time only thing. But then Angelique, the head of that group, said, and I said, like, hey, let's do something else, something like this. And we applied for a grant that we got in France. It was the first time it had ever gone to women. It was for street theater, to make theater for the street. And then we were very lucky to get a series of development residencies in France that allowed us time and space to make the show. And we worked with a cartographer, a sociologist. We wanted to design a treasure hunt that the audience would follow clues and a handmade map to find a series of sound painted performances that were all inspired by interviews with the community. And we developed a show over the course of 2 years. We premiered it in France in 2018, and then we brought it to Brooklyn in 2019 for the US premiere. So we brought some photos along to show you a little bit about what it looks like, what some of the work looks like. I mean, obviously, it's better to show it, to look at a video, but we're not going to do that today. But we'll show you a few photos.
And the other things that I'm going to eventually want to ask you about is whether you've ever created pieces for a location. It's like what comes first, the concept or the site? I sort of mused on that in my marketing blurb about today, so I want to talk about that as well. So, and also I want to go back to what you were saying originally, that fracking was the thing that inspired you to start this thing in the first place. So how often do you get involved in social issues? This is community. What you're describing really is really doing something that's specifically community based. But that's not necessarily issue based. So those are two
well, we
aspects.
started with issue based. That's really where the company came from. The shows in the early years were all stemming from issue based. It was Same River that started pushing us into a new direction. I would say everything we do is political and certainly social justice oriented. Some of our shows have been about climate change, different environmental issues. Even this show, Pop Up, which is very light and whimsical, joyful, can sometimes we stumble on some pretty serious issues in the community that we don't really shy away from. But
I would assume homelessness rears its head every now and then.
Yeah, actually, in that initial show that I was telling you about on the one street, it was called Des Rue Colbert. One of the organizations where we did some interviews and worked with was a cultural institution for the unhoused. Now that tells you a lot about France, because we don't have places where homeless folks can go and take poetry workshops and go to museums. But this place did that, and they
Actually, we have one on the West Coast because I interviewed the guy who does exactly that.
oh, really?
Yeah, there is, and I'm blanking right now. Janet Conrad introduced me to him, so she would know who I'm talking about. But I interviewed him like six months ago. He talked about providing art for homeless people and opportunities for them to
Los
participate
Angeles
in art.
Poverty Department, is that
That's
it?
it. That's it.
Yeah, that guy's amazing. Yes, doing very good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, should we pop to
Yeah.
the photos?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go. Let's do
I'll show
it.
you a little bit. This is a version of Pop-Up at Dartmouth. We always ask the same set of questions, and one of the questions is, every town has secrets and rumors. Can you tell us one? And the one that came up at Dartmouth in Hanover, I would say in 90% of the interviews, was that this one secret society, which has no windows, the building has no windows, was rumored to have a pool inside the building. Some people said it was a hot tub on the roof. Some people said it was a pool in the basement. And some people just said that it had the highest water bill on campus. So we made a scene where the performers came out in these cloaks with torches. There were also, we'd heard stories about their initiation ceremonies that involved cloaks and torches. So the actors came out from behind the building with the torches. And then at a certain point, they doffed the robes and they had these ridiculous bathing costumes underneath. And we made a water ballet in front of that secret society. And there were these fake rocks and with this canvas that made them look like rocks. And then the actors came over during the dance and pulled off the canvas. And there were these pink flamingos under there, which they completed the dance with. It was a very silly and fun scene.
Just looks like a normal afternoon in New York.
And this is a picture of the interview stand. You see one of the performers here in the forefront, Bryce, and a student in the background there taking notes. In this case at Dartmouth, we taught students how to do our interview process, and they accompanied the actors. We're at a farmer's market in Norwich, Vermont, and we're interviewing someone who just came upon the stand. And in the background, you can see a giant map. There's a better shot of that coming up, but we ask people to participate in different ways. They can either sit down, have a drink with us, and then we ask them some questions. It takes about 5 minutes. It's very quick. Or they can respond in writing, or they can respond by putting stickers on a map. And here's an example of that. The prompts are things like, where's a great place to take a nap? Or if you were going to propose to someone, where would you do it? And so they take a sticker, they put it on the map in response to each prompt. And what that does is it tells us places of significance in the community, to the community. And those are going to lead us to the spots where we should perform. So this student is putting a dot in front of Baker Library, which is where we did one of the clown scene, that clowns busted right out of the front doors of the library and did a scene in Seussical rhyme because Dr. Seuss had gone to school there. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, it was referencing a tradition that they have for freshmen every year, where on the first snowfall, every freshman gets an email supposedly from Dr. Seuss inviting them to come out at midnight for a snowball fight on the green. So we reenacted that with fake snowballs. The whole audience had a snowball fight, and it was pretty fun. This is one of the sound painting workshops. We always offer free sound painting workshops to the community and then invite the community to be part of the show. They're always in the finale. And depending on the amount of contact we have with the community, if in Dartmouth, we were able to work in several classrooms. So in that case, we had students in different scenes as well. But that's what that is. This is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. You can see this, the old steel
Steels,
tracks
yeah,
in the
steel,
background.
yeah.
But we came across an incredible story of community solidarity. There was a giant chimney in that town, 40 feet tall. And there was a fifth grade teacher who enjoyed watching these birds called chimney swifts that migrate every year, and they roost in the chimney. It's an important stop for them on their migration route. And she then saw a chain link fence around the place, and they were going to demolish the building. And so she got her fifth graders to lobby city hall, and also gathered community members to try to stop this. And luckily, the developer was all ears and ended up saving the chimney. He demolished the building, built the building he was going to do, but he saved the chimney. And it was an incredible story about this community coming together to save these birds. And the fifth graders successfully lobbied city council to make the chimney swift the official bird of Bethlehem. So this scene is all about that. The audience begins the show, pre-show, when they arrive after the box office. They were asked to write one word that connotes home to them on one of these 2D black chimney swift cutouts. And then they go on, they go from scene to scene. They hopefully forget all about it. And then in the fifth scene, they come around the corner to this chain link fence that has the old iron forge behind it that's decrepit, falling apart, but very beautiful in its decay. And all the birds are pinned to the fence that they had written on. So the audience is invited to put on headphones. They hear the chimney swift song that's chirping, and they read the other audience members' words.
So what we're looking at, the canopy that we're looking at has all those birds.
No, I'm getting to this canopy. Forgive me, I'm
okay.
Long, but they as they walk along, one of the fifth graders, we had her record a story of saving the chimney, but from the chimney swift's perspective. So the audience hears that, and when they get to this parking lot, that's when this canopy comes along. It's a giant puppet. It took 8 puppeteers, and when it's all smushed together, you can kind of create a murmuration as it moves. And then it came over the audience and spread out so it was above them. And when that happened, they start to hear a song that one of the musicians crafted, that's all based on stuff that we learned in the interview about how strong the community is, the solidarity, the strength it took to come together and save the birds, but also just other examples that we came upon in different interviews of community strength. So that's what that is.
Oh.
And this is a scene about the steel plant.
Let me just say something. So you have a tech crew of some sort that creates some of these set pieces.
This is actually a sculpture on Lehigh University's campus.
Oh my goodness.
I was just struck by it. It's made of rebar, so steel. And it just seemed like the perfect place to have the scene about the fall of the steel plant and the loss of all the jobs. So this character you're seeing doing a fire dance is Hephaestus, who was the Greek god of iron and metalworking. And then unfortunately out of the picture frame are there. We have two actors playing steel workers who tell us their story in a kind of poetic form of losing their jobs and being, what's next, what is going to happen, what's going to happen to Bethlehem. And then there is a very wonderful ensemble theater based in Bethlehem called Touchstone Ensemble. And Touchstone did an incredible production back sometime around 1999. At the time when the steel plant closed, they created a huge epic Greek production, Prometheus, inside the old steel plant with a lot of the out of work steel workers. And it was about Prometheus didn't want to leave the steel plant. He just couldn't. He chained himself to the ladle and he wouldn't leave. And we heard some people talk about this in their interviews and how much this production changed the community and opened up their imagination to something else being possible. And now, people thought that Bethlehem was just going to crash and burn, but it's a vibrant place now, and the arts are a huge part of that. And a lot of people believe that that production really helped to turn things around for Bethlehem and point to the possibilities that the arts could really revive a community in decline. And so we wanted to make a scene about that and honor that production. And so the steelworkers talk about that, seeing that, witnessing that, and being part of it.
So this raises an interesting question. I'm going to actually ask you this. Oh, look at you.
Yeah, that's
you,
me. Yeah. That's me. Yeah.
Flapper. Yay.
Yep. Yeah, that's in Prospect Park. Fort Greene Park.
I want to have, if we have time, I just want to have a short little conversation about what is theater, because I think that's a key question that comes up for me. What theater is for what your company. And the other thing is there's so many things. There's site specific. There's issues. There's sound painting. What I finally was able to do in my head was think of this as your toolbox. As a theater artist, you have your own personalized toolbox, and it's different than the toolbox a lot of other people use. Although they're always welcome to borrow your tools.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always teaching and sharing.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me because I don't usually think of theater in these terms. And what does theater mean to you?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I ask rough ones, don't I?
I guess an art form that requires an audience, and that reflects people's experience back to them in order to spark ideas and dialogue. And
the other thing that we didn't really name, but is obvious, is that your pieces are also interactive. So
that's true.
So if we're really going to identify what's in your toolbox, we have to, we can't forget interactive. So site-specific, interactive, improvisational, music is part of your tools.
Always live music every time, always.
So that's interesting to me. So you've I don't know if I could say that you've created your own art form, but you certainly have molded existing forms into a shape that I think is uniquely yours. It may not be unique. Maybe there are other people. I just don't know. I don't know any other people that do what you do. So I'm fascinated by it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I don't like to brag, but I do think it is fairly unique. Yeah, because of the combination of elements. I know sound painting companies. I know improv companies, I know interdisciplinary companies, but it is a curious and I think unique combination of elements.
Well, it's very inspiring. Leese Snyderman wants to know, Do communities reach out to you to create performances with them around their stories, or do you find communities reach out, or a bit of both?
Definitely both. Definitely both. Yes. We go to the APAP conference. We definitely hawk our wares and try to find presenters who are interested in this type of work. But it's a very specific type of presenter that's going to want to be. It takes work. It's not an easy, just fly in, come in, do a tech, uh, do the show and leave. We have to plan with them for at least a year, for a show like this, and we have to build partnerships in the local community with a lot of other community organizations in order for this to work. And because we need trust with the community, and we can't do that as outsiders, so we rely on a web of partnerships within the community in order to be able to offer the workshops, have effective interviews, and invite community members into the production itself.
Elizabeth Copeland, I know you had your hand up earlier. Do you want to just turn on your mic and ask a question? You there, Elizabeth? Oh no, I never got to her question. She's ignoring me now.
Had to go.
Okay. Oh dear. This is to the room. I mean, I'd like to open up for any kind of conversation we can have with Amanda and Leese now. So, let me know if there's any comments you want to make. You can put them into the chat. Ross, did I miss anything else that anybody else was saying, other than people saying how beautiful your work seems?
I don't
Jan
think so, no.
Janet Conrad was very moved by your story. What an utterly beautiful story. That was at 6:14. I don't remember which story it was. I think it was the story of Bethlehem Steel and the city of Bethlehem. Um, okay, so
Oh, I see sorry to jump in. I just see a question in the chat about how long between the interviews do you mount the performance?
Mhm.
yeah.
I would say to talk about that at least, but also maybe mention our upcoming show in Vermont.
Yeah, sure. So it varies because, for example, at Dartmouth, it was we did the interviews in July. We mounted the show end of September, beginning of October. So it was a fairly quick turnaround. Lehigh University Bethlehem, they wanted the show, they wanted a timeline that matched the academic year. So we did the interviews in September, October, and we mounted the show late April. That was a little long for us. It's hard to keep the momentum going, both with the community and even a little bit in the ensemble, because it was such a protracted development period. We preferred a little bit more compressed. We're trying a new model right now. We're making a new show. It's I'm very much like in the muck. So I can't quite see yet exactly what the form is, but we're trying to do a super compressed version where we do the interviews and then the show 1 month later. So we're doing a show in Randolph, Vermont, which is central Vermont, with the Chandler Center for the Arts. And we've went to do interviews a couple weeks ago in that general vicinity. It's a very rural area. And then we will do the show October 5th and 6th. So we had a company retreat up. I'm up in the Catskills right now. And we had the whole company come up here to listen to the interviews and start sound painting them, actually, and discussing them. And we're developing it. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what comes. I'm hoping to create something that's a little bit lighter, cheaper, and faster to make than pop-up. I love pop-up, but it is difficult to sell. It's an expensive show.
So RK has the producer question. How do you cost out a project, especially with the time lag between interviews and performance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, typically we've priced the show around $32,000, which I think has been too low. We haven't really been able to cover the costs well enough. But yeah, I mean, I make a budget. I figure out, of course, like what are all of our costs. The presenter covers a lot of costs. You know, they cover housing, they cover per diem. Um, we have
Oh, that's what I
three
was going to.
site visits.
That's one of the things that I was thinking about earlier. And you talked about going to Paris with the show. How many company members did you have to fly to Paris?
Um, in tour,
Yeah.
we just had six, very
Oh, so
stripped down.
it was smaller kind
Yeah,
of.
but pop-up is 13. So it's sizable, especially when you're talking about bringing the company for a week and housing everybody and feeding everyone, travel.
And do you
But
also do you create set pieces in advance? So do you have like a workshop where you're based, where people can build things? You have to build some things for some of these
you mean
projects. Like
set pieces? Is that what you mean?
set pieces, yeah, yeah. Set and some probably props as well. Set and props.
Yeah, we do not have our own space. We have never had our own space. We are an itinerant company. Um, so usually our set designers or costume designers, they work on their own premises.
So you do hire people that are not necessarily part of your company. How do you
Yes.
find
Yes,
how do
but
you find them?
ideally I'm always looking to find on company ensemble members.
Janet Conrad is making a suggestion in the form of a question. Do you think the company should create a
Oh,
book telling the stories of the productions and the wonderful effects they've had on many
that's a
communities?
great idea. I love that idea.
I want a soundtrack too. The music is so
Oh
beautiful.
yeah. Yeah, because we always create original songs for each place. Yeah, I know. We've talked about that, a sort of
Yeah,
best of or the hits. I don't know, the songs
greatest
of the
hits.
shows. Yeah, but we've never done that. We should.
Do you have a core group of musicians who you work with, or do you
Yeah.
bring people
Yeah,
in?
yeah. So we have
You have a core group.
yep, yep. Rolf Sturm has been with the company since 2000, and our trumpeter Rob Hankey since 2001. And we've had a lot of other musicians who've been with us for a long time, but those are the two long time core members right now.
So you've been doing this for 27 years. It's like 27, right?
Yeah.
So congratulations on keeping anything going for 27 years.
Thank
Hey,
you.
no, that's from
It's
a guy
not easy.
who's kept this thing going for I think we're at 32 years right now.
Wow.
So isn't I know it's not no, it's not easy at all.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Um, do we have any other comments or questions from the room? Anything else you guys want to know about?
I
Um,
see Stephanie had a question. She said, "Are you doing a show in the New York City area soon?" Yes. We have a monthly show in Brooklyn at Young Ethel's, which is a bar. It's a sound painting show, and we invite the audience. We ask the audience for suggestions, like give us a text message, a recent text message from your phone, or give us a musical key, things like that, or tell us a story uh, about a time, when you had an aha moment or something. And then the audience member will share that, and then we'll instantly sound paint a piece based on the audience suggestion. So that show is called Tell Me Something, and we will we'll be kicking it back into gear in November, and it's generally the first Tuesday of the month.
so you're not always creating things new. You have a repertory of pieces that you can apply to different situations and take to different places.
Yeah.
Um, how often do you build a whole new concept?
every few years, I guess. Although sometimes we do it on the fly, like someone will commission us. Like, here's an example. A few months ago, somebody asked us to create something for an environmental climate change festival here in New York City. And so we created something for Fort Greene Park called Pliable Futures. And we did it pretty quickly. I mean, in a few rehearsals, we developed a piece about the plastic crisis. I asked all the performers to save every piece of disposable one-time use plastic for a month. And then we used all that plastic. We wove it into a net that the performers had to wear and drag around with them in Fort Greene Park while being
like Jacob Marley.
It was yeah. It was a really crazy piece, but it I don't know. This is just a little thing, but my mom said my parents came to it, and she said, "I want you to know that ever since that piece, I haven't bought another bottle of water a plastic bottle since." I was like, "Oh, that's nice to hear." Hopefully that happened with a lot, other.
I'm feeling so guilty.
My mom.
I'm feeling so guilty. Oh my God. I have plenty of plastic bottles.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, when you read about it, water bottles are really terrible for the environment. I didn't realize quite how bad they were. It's sometimes what ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. Oh my God. Gonna have to do some soul searching, aren't I? Well, on that note, I'm going to, thank you guys for being with me today. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Leese. And it was wonderful hearing about Strike Anywhere Performance Ensemble. It's a whole theater language that I never have spoken myself, and it's interesting to hear that the toolbox can have a lot more in it than we think. So I'm going to go and say a few words to my YouTube audience, and
Okay.
you hang out for a second. I'll be right back.
All right. Thank you so much for having us, Bob. It's really been a pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. So I want to thank everybody out there. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody in the community for being part of this. Every week you guys show up, and so I'm going to keep doing it. As long as you guys show up, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm planning for my 500th consecutive performance in 2 years, but at the moment we're at 228, which is a pretty astonishing right there. So thank you for being part of us today, Amanda and Leese. Thank you to the community in the room, and thank you, YouTubers, and anybody out there who catches us on a podcast. We are Theater Resources Unlimited. We are a not-for-profit organization, and basically we train theater artists and producers in terms of the business of theater. We have a focus on producers, but we also have lots of artists in the community, and we have a basic belief that understanding the business is essential for being successful in the business. So we encourage everybody to take our programs, take our courses if you want, and learn a little bit more about how things work in theater. We've been doing this as a community service. It's pay what you can. And not surprisingly, a lot of people pay nothing. I just want to say to you out there in YouTube land and all the people that know us, it's not a sustainable model doing everything for free. So if you ever want to actually give us a little bit of support, I would be really grateful. You can go to TRUdonate.com, TRUdonate.com, if you want to support what we do, or pay a small fee to come in and join us on Fridays, or become a member. Becoming a member is enormously helpful. So those are some of the options. And I also wanted to let everybody know that you can be part of the room. You can come here and you can be part of the room. You can ask questions and meet people and have a feeling of being in a community. I can make that happen. All you have to do is email me. Email me at TRU and LTD, TRUNLTD at AOL.com. That's TRUNLTD at AOL.com. And I'll gladly invite you every week to our Zooms. Next week, we're going to be interviewing a theater legend named Irene Gandy. And the week after that, she's a publicist and a producer and amazing, amazing woman. She has stories like you wouldn't believe. And after that, we're doing an interview with Tanya Pinkins, the Tony-winning actress and also director. And currently, she's a producer as well. And then we've got other things coming in the pipeline, including I'm going to be interviewing next month Beowulf Bloritt, the Tony-winning set designer. So keep track of what we do and come join us when you can. That's it for me for today. And again, thank you all for being with us.